So Lord Chaitanya is a prominent guru and teacher, and he's also an incarnation of Krishna. So he shared 8 verses. There's a lot of literature about his life and his pastimes that other people wrote, but what he wrote is just, he wrote a small amount. And so I wanted to share verse number 3 today. And to invoke auspiciousness during this class, I believe we should say some invocation prayers. And I think that would be the prayers that are said before reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. Would this be like a good direction? I don't feel ready to lead that. So I was wondering if maybe someone else would guide us in those invocation prayers.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri
Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Chandra Jai Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Veta Chandra Jai Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jai Veta Chandra Jai Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Chandra Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. And next, I'm going to post the verse and translation in the chat, and Anne is going to recite it for us.
Actually, I like to sing it, please.
Sing.
I've been learning this verse, and I've just been singing it on my walks, and so it's in my heart. So thank you, Dominique, for asking. Okay. Trinarapi sunachena tara api sahisnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sare hare.
And will you share the translation too?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street, being more tolerant than a tree, devoid of any sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respect to others. In such a humble state of mind, one is able to chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Jai.
Thank you. So before I share more, I'm going to offer my respects to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pratramini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Desha Tarini. Hare Krishna. So I'm going to say the verse again myself. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and one should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So where I'm coming from with wanting to share this verse today and focus on it together, and it's a popular verse that we hear often in these classes when we get together. Well, what has been happening for me with the recent world pandemic issue is my desire for chanting had decreased, and I still was maintaining some level of chanting, but falling behind and chanting at the last minute. And I, just for whatever reason, I mean, I have some understanding of what was happening for me, but I wanted to like cope and survive more than wanting to thrive and take more shelter. Knowing, I was feeling, I know what I should do, but I'm not doing it. And different things have inspired me to continue and not give up my spiritual practice or I still have my values and my goals to continue cultivating bhakti yoga, but feeling stuck and feeling in a just feeling stuck. So one thing that inspired me was Anne, Bhaktin Anne. She shared that she knew this verse, and it was really just she shared it with me and a few other people and online through a video, and that she had memorized the verse, and it was just the perfect thing to hear for me. I was like, oh, I'm not feeling humble, and how can I chant the holy name of the Lord constantly if I'm wanting to, from a place of anxiety, control my life, and I was really feeling activated in my mind in the past month, like, what can we do, what's happening, trying to figure it out, trying to be in control, feeling anxious, and just being driven by like a false sense of like, basically what I think has happened for me, maybe others, is that I had an appearance of, I was under the illusion that I had more control over my life than I really do. And so I feel like I'm so grateful that this huge worldwide event is happening, and I've got this boundary to stay in the home. And, like, there's just like, it's really a blessing for realizing that we're not in control. Maybe we all think that we were in control of our lives, or maybe we think we're about to be back in control of our lives after the quarantine's over. But really, we're not in control at all of much. We have some control over what we do and what we think. What we do we have some sphere of influence, but it's relatively small. And Hare Krishna. Welcome, Patrick and Stephanie, who just joined. So this morning I was inspired to share about this verse, and I wrote out, and the verse, there's actually 5 points. I feel like they're a checklist. They're like a checklist for your chanting practice or your spiritual practice. And I'll kind of review them one by one. So one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind. So that's sort of like the overview of the rest of the 4 points in this verse. And so I kind of, personally, I want to take this into my chanting practice, because not only was I not inspired genuinely to chant in the last month or so, also I feel sleepy when I'm chanting. I don't feel focused when I'm chanting. And I'm not, even when I'm doing it, I'm not feeling very present. I mean, not only the last month, I mean, the last 5.5 years that I've been attempting to chant 16, no, I wasn't chanting 16 rounds a day, but a certain number of rounds per day over the last 6 years, whatever amount that was. I'm not very present with like the devotional attitude, and I forget about Krishna all day long, and I forget about him even during chanting. So this humble state of mind is really, for me personally, a really huge, it's a huge stretch. And I was brought back to my Satvatov seminar experiences, which I won't like describe exactly what happened, but I had some like assignments and some processes that I went through personally that really like put me in my place. And just, I guess we all have different personalities and different like, different natures, like ways of thinking, ways that our mind goes. And I'm in a particular category of people who thinks that they know a lot, and is so I come to this point in my life with like self-righteousness attitudes, wanting to control, wanting to think that I know, you know, and that's the particular like vehicle I'm in or conditioning I have. And so this verse is just contradicting everything that I've cultivated prior to attempting to practice devotional service. Humble state of mind. So today I was walking, I was like lower than the straw in the street. I'm like, there's no straw in the street anymore. Actually, there is, like, you can actually like go on a walk and meditate on straw in the street. Like it's right there, and it's just like piece of grass and like pine needles and like rubber, like old leaves and old sticks that are in the street, like this day and age 2020, and you can meditate on that. And I was like, straw in the street. The first reaction is like, I'm not lower than straw in the street. I'm a spirit soul. I've got this, you know, intelligence and brightness. This is dull matter. Like, how could I be lower? How can I imagine myself lower than straw in the street? And then sages are doing it, like our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. He's promoting this, and he demonstrates it too. And many people demonstrate humility, and it's perplexing to me. I mean, you know, it's just humility is just a quality that I aspire for. It's not one that I've mastered. So anyway, I mean, I started thinking about clear intention. Clear intention is something that we're taught in the Sappatov seminars and what that looks like. And you really like, with clear intention, you're putting your consciousness, you're envisioning the actual goal that you have manifested, and you're really putting your energy into that vision. And I thought today, what if that was my meditation, that I was lower than straw in the street? What if that was my clear intention? And the next point on the checklist is more tolerant than a tree. And I'm like, how could I possibly be more tolerant than a tree? What is more tolerant than a tree? I was wondering, I was meditating, like, what is more tolerant? And I was thinking Mother Earth, like, well, no, she like kind of fights back, and you know, she has her reactions, although she's tolerant, I mean, but yeah, like, I don't even know what's more tolerant than a tree, and how could I possibly embody that? So it's really something to aspire for, like this list of the state of mind that one can be in. Maybe Lord Krishna is more tolerant than a tree, and that's it. I don't know. So I find like so much support from this verse. And going further down the list, the next checkpoint is devoid of false prestige. And I'm like, well, I don't really use this word prestige. You know, I want to refresh what this is. And so I looked up the definition, which is, so this would mean being devoid of, so it says false. I think what that means is like, I think it means devoid of a sense of prestige about oneself. Because the prestige, the glories should go to God. This is a devotional mood. And prestige means reputation or influence arising from success, achievement, rank, and other favorable attributes. So if we're falsely appreciating our own self for what we have done, what our successes have been, our position, our special attributes, if we're doing that, it's like the devotional attitude is so high, the mood of the humility is so like elevated, is what I mean to say. It's so elevated because the mood is so like, it's really putting oneself in a subordinate, submissive, surrendered position. And it sort of seems like a paradox, you know. And there's a quote that I grabbed from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 17, Text 37. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, a devotee is always powerful, but a devotee does not wish to show his power unnecessarily. And, you know, when I read that definition of prestige, so I've read other favorable attributes. So I was thinking of Krishna's 6 opulences, which would anyone like to share what Krishna's 6 opulences are? You can unmute yourself.
Beautiful.
Detached.
Beautiful, detached. Which is like also renunciation.
Fame.
Fame.
Wealth.
Wealth. Okay. Anyone else?
Renunciation.
Renunciation. Okay, I think that's the same as detachment. So we're still at 4.
Strength.
Strength. Okay, did someone say beauty? So, or knowledge. Okay, so knowledge, fame, beauty, strength, wealth, and renunciation. Renunciation always perplexes me. But yeah, like Krishna is not attached to, he's renouncing, you know, I can't speak about this. I can only speculate, so I won't even speak about that. What is he renouncing? Maybe someone else will discuss that later on in the class. But anyway, so Krishna is really the Lord God, our creator, you know, the source of everything. He has all the qualities. He's really the source of beauty, fame, knowledge, strength, wealth. So yeah, like our position is that we're like created by God, and we have a purpose, and there's many wonderful qualities of the soul. And then, you know, many souls stay in their rightful constitution. They stay devoted to the highest truth, which is God. And then there's those of us who we lose our identity, and we like begin to want to serve ourselves and not be servants of the highest truth. We start to think about and we, you know, the people that step away from that constant devotional service to the highest truth, to God, they end up coming to the material world. You know, this is what's presented in the Vedic scriptures. So here we are in the material world. We've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten our position, and it seems like a stretch to re-establish that devotion. It's not necessarily feeling natural when we start, and maybe, and I know like a lot of us have come to spiritual life through the route of like personal growth and self-development, and that's even something whether we have or not. It could be that Sappho was really your first self-development seminar, and maybe some of you haven't been to Sappho seminars, but it's a personal growth seminar, but it has a spiritual element, which I found very distinct from other personal growth experiences I've had. And anyway, what I want to say is that in the culture of self-development and personal growth and even spiritual enlightenment, especially like including in New Age circles, there can be a sense of like reclaiming who we are in a way that's not humble. So it's like there's a fine balance between like reclaiming our our power, our wonderful spiritual qualities, and staying humble about it. Like Prabhupada said, a devotee is always powerful, but a devotee does not wish to show his power unnecessarily. So this is really about using our power and our, you know, what I mean to say, when I say this is, what I mean is like like the perfection of self-realization is, yes, to access all the qualities of the soul, to cultivate them and even master them, but in a mood of service. This is like the proper way to apply your to share your qualities. And I find it really touching. Like whenever I heard about devotional service, I started coming to some of these classes, and it felt like, wow, finally, like something that makes sense, like devotion, like cultivating my loving service propensity and directing it to the highest truth. And at the time when, almost 6 years ago, that I started to practice chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and reading the Bhagavad Gita, what was I going to say? I don't remember exactly. I don't know why I started thinking about something else. But anyway, when I started this practice, it just felt like this is like the most logical thing. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I didn't have a relationship with God. I didn't have, I was like atheist, or like kind of just like, yeah, I had some spiritual ideas. I had previously had different paths. I was a Christian and, atheist, and I don't know, went through different things. But basically just nothing alive. I never had any kind of like alive spiritual questions and process and like something to engage with. So I didn't have any relationship with God. But I did believe in an absolute truth. And so when I started to consider the concept of devotional service, I applied it to the absolute truth. Like that was like kind of like how that was like my way in, like, okay, there is an absolute truth that just makes sense to me, like logically. And how can I be in total devotion to the absolute truth? And maybe the absolute truth is a person, and a creator, a person, like, and then I started eventually over time, like over discussions and reading and chanting, I was like, yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Like all this serendipity that I experienced a lot of like magical things coming at the perfect time. And it really felt like the universe was responding to me. And then I started thinking, well, what is the universe? What and who is it? And like, how is everything perfectly timed? And I had a sort of a mystical experience in my childhood that is mystical. It's not so much like normal. It's not like serendipity. It was more like a mystical thing. And I was like, that was perfectly timed. And so is the absolute truth a nebulous cloud? Is it like just a cloud of souls, all like just like mist, like I was thinking, is it like just a fog of the truth, and it didn't make sense, and it started to not make any sense that like there's just the universe and it responds perfectly to everyone individually, with like precise timing of the things that happen in our life. It started to make sense more like there's consciousness, there's intelligence behind what there's intelligence, like there's like a person. It's like, well, what has intelligence? People, like an entity. So I was like, yeah, maybe the absolute truth is a person. And I just stayed open to that. I kept an open mind. That who am I to say that like, oh no, like God's not a person with preferences and desires and and scriptures and instructions, like, who am I to say that? I mean, it's actually easier and it's more comfortable to perceive God as, just this white light, or just an energy. Because when we perceive God as a person, then we have a relationship, and it's not comfortable to surrender and love. It's not comfortable to surrender and love like the source of everything. It's far out. It's like, wow, like God, I don't see him, I don't see Krishna. I hear about him, And, you know, maybe, and we all have our different paths. So some of us were raised with the concept of God, and it just maybe feels natural, and it's something that you've already cultivated. For some of us, for me, I was not raised at all with humility and surrender and God were just like words that were not in my vocabulary, concepts that were not in my consciousness. Like it was just like, what do we want? What do I want? What do I want to eat? What do I want to watch on TV? This is how I was raised. And although I with some care, you know, I had I had a good mother and father with that brought me up with some morals and values, you know. But I'll just say that my particular father, he's a huge like jokester, like makes a lot of jokes, and like his particular style of jokes includes humor about how great he is. And like to this day, this is the kind of jokes that I like when I feel like playful, or I don't know, maybe I'm even trying to avoid feelings, like, you know, it depends kind of, but this is a place that I can go, is like being self-righteous, and it can be funny, it can be done well, but like ha ha ha, you know. But I don't really like it because I'm trying to cultivate devotion. I'm trying to cultivate humility and like glorifying God. And kirtan means glorifying the Lord. So I'm trying to cultivate bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness, God consciousness, and it's a struggle. The next point on the checklist is ready to offer all respects to others. I'm failing at it, but you know, I at least have a goal. Like, yeah, it's in my value system to respect others. Like I carry that from, you know, my whole life. I have that as that makes sense to me. It's logical. It's just totally how I want to be. But you know, back here in my home, I definitely am making mistakes, you know, thinking that I know it's better, especially like in co-parenting and, you know, having a husband. I am constantly, like thinking I know how things should be. And I'm also, at least, you know, I don't want to be defensive, but yeah, I am like apologizing often. So it's like just to be human, to like, it's like humans we have 4 defects according to the I believe it's in the Bhagavad Gita. I don't really know like the verse about these 4 defects, but if anyone would like to share what the 4 defects are of the human being, I would love to hear that. You want to unmute yourself.
Perfect senses.
Making mistakes, cheating, being illusioned.
Yeah, that's it. So imperfect senses, cheating, making mistakes, and being able to fall into illusion. So this is the situation we're in. And we can be compassionate with ourselves. Maybe we're not acting devotional or humble or surrendered, but you know, that's what happens in the human condition. That's where we're at. We're in human condition. So we're making mistakes and under illusion that we're in control and that we're so wonderful. And you know, the soul is amazing. The devotee is always powerful, but we're making mistakes here. So I actually grabbed 2 other, not verses, but some things to read from Prabhupada in 2 different purports. So I'll share those with you. So I'm reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 49 in the purport. This is the beginning of the purport. Well, I'll read the verse. It says, O Dhananjaya, rid yourself of all fruitive activities by devotional service and surrender fully to that consciousness. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are misers. So here's the purport. One who has actually come to understand one's constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord gives up all engagements save working in Krishna consciousness. As already explained, Buddha Yoga means transcendental loving service to the Lord. Such devotional service is the right course of action for the living entity. Only misers desire to enjoy the fruit of their own work just to be further entangled in material bondage. Except for work in Krishna consciousness, all activities are abominable because they continually bind the worker to the cycle of birth and death. One should therefore never desire to be the cause of work. Everything should be done in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of Krishna. Misers do not know how to utilize the asset of riches which they acquire by good fortune or by hard labor. One should spend all energies working in Krishna consciousness, and that will make one's life successful. Like the misers, unfortunate persons do not employ their human energy in the service of the Lord. So this morning, so like the last few weeks or months, I don't know, I just haven't, the verse that I just read is chapter 2, text 49. Is that the verse you wanted? Okay. So, of Bhagavad Gita. This morning, so yeah, like the last few weeks I've been like sleeping longer and sleeping in, like not waking up to my alarm. And but having this service, this Krishna conscious service of like preparing for this class, I was like, oh, I want to do all this chanting story. Actually, I stayed up a little late finishing my rounds, and I set 4 alarms to keep going off and wake me up. And I was like, I have a service. And I had like a different mentality than I have in like weeks. I'm like, oh, I have a service and I want to be present for that service and I want to give what I can. And I knew that my preparation for this class was chanting because like I need to, purify my sense of false prestige and other things. So I was chanting this morning, like, okay, I'm awake. I'm like, I've done this before. I've lived like this before where I don't get a huge amount of sleep. I actually do better with less sleep. Personally, I need 6 to 6.5 hours of sleep to like feel more Krishna conscious. I don't know, like the more sleep I get, it just like I have lower desires. So it's like my lower self, wants to escape in other ways and be lazy. So I was contemplating this morning, like, gosh, like what if I just did like surrendered fully, submitted myself fully to the instructions of my spiritual master and lived Krishna conscious and just submitted fully to the program that he provides. Even though I don't want to, like, what if I were just to do it, like put myself through those actions, even though it's not even like where I'm at, where I think I'm at, or like if it's not comfortable or not desire, maybe it's like painful to really just fully act Krishna conscious and live that way. But like I could do it, at least. I feel like I had a sense like I could do it if I wanted to, which is actually hopeful and empowering. Like, oh, I could be Krishna conscious. I could just act it out, even if, because like, I believe it's who we are. Like we, like the soul without any of these conditionings that we're under is naturally God conscious, and it's accessible. We can access the qualities of the soul. We can act from a pure place. It is possible. I'm sure we've all experienced it. Like, wow, I did it. Like you seeing yourself doing something devotional or like it's possible. And it would just be such an act of surrender to just stand up tall and take every step I take and every you know, and I realize it's, you know, in reality, it's a gradual process. It's a cultivation process to become devotional and surrendered. But it's still good to have like a clear intention. So I've been thinking about clear intention and like identity, like we're those of us who are like endeavoring to cultivate bhakti, which means devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And maybe we're not there yet. We can have a goal and we can cultivate that goal and we can get clear on that goal. We can like really envision ourselves in that future that we're heading towards. Like we can have a pact, which is a pact. It's in the book Relationships That Work. It's also something that's taught in the Sappatov seminars. It's not to go over the whole thing, but it's basically like a full like statements and laying out what your goal is and how you're going to achieve it, and really getting into like the vision of your goal, whatever your goal is. But what if your goal is to become a pure devotee? Like it sounds kind of, whenever I say something like that, like I feel who do I think I am becoming a pure devotee? Like that's like I almost judge that goal as like not humble. Like, oh yeah, my goal is to become a pure devotee. Like, yeah, right, you know, like you're going to be able to do that. That's for transcendental people, and you know, so but I mean really it's it's a worthy goal, and you know, it makes sense. Like there's some logic to it, like to be a pure loving person, you know, and it's really logical to be pure in your service, and it's worthy goal. So we can develop clear intention. We can envision ourselves. We can like envision that future self acting devotional, like, and increasing it, or even just you can envision a whole life and lifestyle that's Krishna conscious. And in addition to doing that, I know this, like, so, you know, I don't know where the teaching is, but there's like some teachings in that we hear from Prabhupada about thinking, feeling, and willing. And the order of like what we do, and with anything we do, it originates with a thought, and then we usually have a feeling, and then we're willing, like we're planning on acting, and then we act. So I'm not sure if I'm like describing that very clearly, so please forgive me if it's not like fully clear, but basically everything that we do and feel originates from thoughts or concepts in the consciousness. And if that's the case, another way to cultivate Krishna consciousness is starting with identity. So our thoughts go further back. There's actually a further back step. So there's thinking, feeling, willing, acting, and then I don't have this grasped very well, but I know in a class I was asking questions like, what comes before the thought is like, what are we identifying with? What are we associating with? And if we're associating with pure devotees and we're identifying as like, yeah, like I'm a servant of, I'm an eternal, blissful, conscious servant of the Lord, of the absolute truth, and we like cultivate that identity, this is really going to be a powerful step. And I'm not an expert in what I just said at all. I am just saying that I'm fascinated by the idea of like, what am I identifying with? And it's also related to what do I associate with? Because whatever I associate with is going to like really like impact my consciousness. And yeah, that's just always the case. So the great sages and saints and spiritual masters, and even the Lord himself, Lord Chaitanya, was cultivating humility and surrender and devotion. And if they can do it, you know, and they're masters they're masters of spirit. There are masters of spiritual life, and the bona fide spiritual master, one of his identifying qualities is humility. There are 26 qualities of the spiritual master, and I don't have them memorized, and I don't even know where they are to refer you to. So some of my classes, the way that they go is questions are posed, and then anyone could take up finding those answers or sharing later in the class or later on. But I don't have all the answers. So, but anyway, so we can follow in their footsteps, not imitate them and pretend that we're pure, but like sincerely, attempt to access our genuine devotion. And there's many things that motivates us to go there. Sometimes it's just inspiration, like for me, like listening to just being in kirtan, which I do miss from this whole pandemic, is like congregational chanting and singing. It really moves me, like, oh yeah, like I want to be a devotee, oh my gosh, Krishna, please, like, thank you. And, and I start to, it moves me. So sometimes just kirtan is just really moving. But there's many other ways to be motivated to cultivate Krishna consciousness, such as pain, the pain of acting in our lower self. There's like, basically we can use any opportunity, whether we're experiencing something externally distressing or pleasant, or whether we're experiencing internal joy or misery. All of it is an opportunity to cultivate Krishna consciousness and to turn to the Lord. Oh, let me share this last verse that I picked out from the Bhagavad Gita. This is chapter 2, text 23 of Bhagavad Gita, and I'm reading from the purport. This is okay, so I'll start down here. Okay, the jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of the material body, but as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as the supreme spiritual master. So, okay, so there's a tree of the material body, and there's two birds on that tree: the soul, ourselves, and the Lord. He's like an incarnation of the Lord is in our heart. So we actually have supreme guidance within us and with us all the time. And so the jiva soul is struggling very hard in the tree of the material body, but as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as the supreme spiritual master, as Arjuna agreed to do voluntarily, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntary surrender unto Krishna for instruction, the subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all limitations. Both the Katha Upanishad and Sveta Svatara Upanishad confirm this. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagno. This is, I don't know the melody. Nishaya shochati muyamana justam yada pashyat yanam yam isham masya mahimanam iti vita shoka. Quote, although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. Arjuna has now turned his face toward his eternal friend, Krishna, and is understanding the Bhagavad Gita from him. And thus, hearing from Krishna, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. So, yeah, we can turn to the Lord, inspired by any moment. And on that note, I feel like association is really important, like to develop like faith and practice in choosing the devotional life and choosing to turn to God and to do our practice and to follow the spiritual master's instructions. Yeah, like I can't really emphasize that enough, just from personal experience, that association is like vital to my practice in Krishna consciousness. Like if I go a few days without the reading or chanting or association, even just a few days or one day, my mind is easily thinking about other things, and I'm getting entangled in all kinds of material desires and thoughts and projects, and it just, we're like fragile, we're fragile, we're vulnerable very easily. We're in the material world, we're in a material body, we're very vulnerable to lose ourselves. And so we need really like a lot of great care. And we're also like social creatures, and we need association, we need like love and care from others, and it can be from the scriptures. Srila Prabhupada is available to be present with us in his teachings. So we can turn to Krishna if we don't, we're in isolation, so actually we can associate online, it's fine, but there's so many ways to associate. And another thing to keep in mind is that when we're chanting, like the most accessible association is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And the Lord is present in his names. So there we have the Lord in our heart, and we have his holy names to chant. And by speaking the names of the Lord, it doesn't have to be Hare Krishna or Rama, it can be other names of the Lord, but when we speak them, because the Lord himself is absolute, he's present in his names. It's not like the name is separate from him. So the actual bona fide names of God, when we utter them, we are invoking the presence of the Lord himself. So yeah, we're never disconnected from the Lord, but we can easily get ourselves into illusion that we're disconnected, and so much of a mess can come from that illusion. So anyway, it's very nice to stay close to the devotees of the Lord and the spiritual master and Krishna himself. So I'm going to restate the verse and then open up for discussion. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. And one more comment. I feel like this is also like for me a ticket to my future. Like, oh, I do want to chant. I want to chant with, regularity, steadiness, and presence. Now I know how to do it, and it's this 5-point checklist. So it's a hopeful verse too. Hare Krishna, thank you all for holding space for that class. Keith.
Yeah, first I just thought about this before. It's like a meditation for me.